Hey, ladies and gentlemen, and all folks in between and around and circumventing and just generally existing. Welcome to another glorious episode of Jeff Has Cool Friends. I am Jeff. I have cool friends, and my very cool friend right here is, I don't even know how to describe toy maker, toy designer, toy smith, toyist. I don't know. It's Cory Privitera, also known as Science Patrol. Cory, how you doing, bud?
Doing good. It's very hot here in Tokyo. It's about 88 degrees, and I don't do well in the heat.
This is interesting. Yeah, we have a 16-hour time difference or an 8-hour time difference, depending on how you want to view it. But that being said, yeah, we are on two different hemispheres talking. You are my first international recording.
Sad that a white Polish kid from Buffalo is your first Asian correspondent.
I know. Yeah,
Asia-based correspondent.
Yes. Right after I had Koi Fam on, and then here we go. Another guy, by the way, from New England, which we'll talk about because you, I believe you lived there for a while too. So we'll talk about that. What do I call you for your job?
I go by toy designer. Toy makers, I do that as well, but a lot of people here, you have like people who are designers, and then you have people who are artists. And the artists are usually their former illustrators, and they make stuff based on kind of their style, their actual like illustration background. Like a toy artist. Toy makers are people who have no artistic background, who just make toys. It's kind of like, oh, you are just doing the toy part.
It's like a manufacturer.
Yeah,
as opposed to
more
an
the
artist.
Producer side. Producer also works.
Okay, because that to me was just the strange thing, because as I was coming up with like how to talk about you, I couldn't actually figure out what to call you. But we have a very weird story. Our introduction story is very strange. We met at
I can't believe how we met.
It is to me legitimately like the wildest meeting I think I've ever had. Whereas it was DesignerCon, I believe it was 2018 or 2019.
Yeah, it was the last one before the pandemic.
So it's 2019.
2019.
So it was DesignerCon in 2019, and I'm going to set the stage because this is just it's insane. I'm walking around. I think I was doing some for Sideshow or whatever, or visiting them or whatever, and then I went to Super 7. The Super 7 table. For those of you that don't know Super 7, they've been doing a lot of those 3 3/4 inch repro action figures that you might see, the like classics redone. And they also did a line of Masters of the Universe cartoon accurate toys, among a million other things. They're a great, I believe, San Diego based company.
I know it's somewhere in California.
Yeah, I think they were based out of San Diego. But regardless, I was at the Super 7 booth talking to the guy there, and he couldn't have given a about me. Like I was like, oh, I love that, this piece I used for a flyer on one of my, he's like, I don't care. And I'm like, that's fair. Okay. And then he immediately drifts to you. You're standing next to me. We don't know each other. And he was like, excuse me, are you, and I don't know if I don't know what name he called you by, if it was Science Patrol.
I think it was the maker name. I think it was Science Patrol. Because a lot of people, they know my name, but they don't use it for whatever reason.
I guess if you go by something on social media or whatever, I guess it makes sense. So he loses his damn mind over you. This dude is a stan. This guy read your blog, which we'll talk about, right?
Yeah.
He was like a bit, and he was like losing his damn mind. And in my head, I was like, well, me. I'm so happy for this guy that he found somebody that he wants to talk to. Like, I didn't take it personally. It was funny to me. I'm just like, well, me, right? So I just left. I just went for a walk, and I was like, I'm going to let them do their thing. I got my Skeletor or whatever. About 20 minutes later, you walk past me, and I grab you out of the crowd pretty much. I mean, I chase you down and said, excuse me. I was at the Super 7 booth, and I watched a man lose his damn mind when he met you.
You're like, what are you?
And I was like, I would love to know why, because seeing that reaction to somebody that I don't automatically recognize is fascinating to me. I mean, I like to interview people. I like to know about them. And you can see that there. And I asked you, and you were maybe a little too, you were saying it like it was nothing. You were explaining what you do like it was nothing.
It's nothing. It was my first American show, so it was really weird that like people were so not freaked out, but excited about meeting me. but I still think it's nothing. Like, I just think I'm a regular guy.
Well, I mean, and that's actually a lot of how this interaction works, because you were very kind of
Mm.
self-deprecating. If I can paraphrase it, you were like, well, I'm a toy designer, but I wrote this blog when I moved to Japan and it went kind of viral. A couple people liked it, and I guess they just fall. And I was like, dude, that's really cool. I was like, what a cool story. And to see somebody that loses their mind, I was like excited for you. And then you were like, well, what do you do? And I was like, dude, I talk about Batman on a podcast and whatever.
But then you listed the stuff that you did, and you talked about mint on card. And the second you said mint on card, and was it the first and whatever Friday of every month in Burbank?
Yeah.
And immediately it clicked in my head. It was like, oh my God, are you Jeff May?
That's what you
said. Recognize you from podcasts.
That's what you said. And I was like, I'm sorry. Like I was like, excuse me. And then you did the thing to me that the other guy did, where you were like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. I was looking to see if I could make it to LA, but I'm in Anaheim and I don't have a car. And so it was like too far. And I didn't know if you guys would have any show. And it was like this really fascinating meeting of two people where.
What are the odds that I would have known you from, like, what I would have actually, of all the people to interact with, that I would have had this like tie to like, oh yeah, I've been listening to you for years.
Well, the funny thing is like, what are the odds of anybody doing that? Because it's very rare. I have leaned into my independent sort of cult status, and I accept it, and it's great. It's fine, and I like that. I very rarely ever get recognized, so that experience was very unique to me too. But like, I was fascinated by you, and so we had this like mutual immediate friendship where you were like, come to my, I have some stuff, come take some stuff. And then we got there and you were like, I sold all my stuff. And that's
all the good stuff.
You gave me these small little guys, which I still have. I have like a shelf of your stuff. I don't know.
Thank you.
And I can angle it, but if you can see where right there, there's like I know people, this is not a visual medium, but I have a couple of, I have like an indie toy shelf right above my two, it's right around my other stuff or whatever, and it's
right
like
below the tick figure.
I have a tick figure right under. It's funny that you mentioned like not the 3 Masters of the Universe carded figures that are there, but the tick figure is the thing. I have several tick figures, actually. I have the box. I have a lot of weird stuff. But so you, and I got your information. I got your contact information, and I looked you up, and I posted this story. And one of my friends, Adam Cornell, another comedian and a toy collector, was like, "Oh my God, like this guy is a master of toy making." And I believe you had worked with Hamill, and I'm forgetting.
Yep, Nathan.
Nate Hamill to make the Porg.
Yeah, there was the Porgs, and then he had another burger cat toy. I had produced 2 of his toys at this point. We had met before through. Actually, we met on the internet because he had done an event in Taiwan with another friend before, and I know he was trying to get back into doing some of his own designs that he like would own. So that's how we ended up connecting. But it was an amazing experience, and just a really bizarre like meeting.
It was, and it's one of those things where I still think about that. It's probably going to be the best, and I we are friends now, so that I certainly don't want to sort of like change the dynamic of that. But it was the greatest fan meeting I'm sure I'll ever have, because it was so random. And because I started by being fascinated by somebody's fandom with you and wanting to know more. And now I'm a fan of yours as well, which I love being a fan of my friends.
Thank you. The whole experience was amplified by me just discovering alcoholic seltzer water too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was a bit loud and a bit. I think I did the shrieky thing.
Were you White Clawing your way through that?
It was the other one. It's Truly, I think. It's the cheaper White Claw.
Who cares? It gets you to the dance. It gets you to the dance.
Yep.
So now we've stayed in contact for a couple of years now, and we actually sent each other packages across the world, across the globe. They took forever.
We sent it the week that shipping had actually gotten screwed up.
Yeah,
I think I
yeah.
sent mine the week that EMS, which is our like international shipping, shut down, and you had sent it around the same time. And it's like, well, they'll get there eventually.
Yeah, they took a couple of months to get across the
Mm.
globe, which is fine. I mean, you sent me some amazing stuff, and I wish I could know the names of them all. I'm very ignorant about your world, and it's kind of one of the reasons that I have you on, is because I want to know more about this world. Obviously, when it comes to toy collecting, my stuff has always generally been licensed, this sort of like the from a cartoon, or from like the
Mm.
indie world, or the bootleg world, which I think is really cool, but I don't know anything really about it.
The bootleg world is actually like a whole other game in itself.
Right,
Those guys are nuts. Those resin casters.
dude, I see some cool I have a bootleg Vader that Peter Santa Maria gave me, because he did the card back for it.
Oh,
But
nice.
my bootleg collection is small, but like kind of I like this stuff now, like, and it's kind of your fault.
There's a whole world out there, man, of unlicensed things that really embrace the American parody law that you're allowed to release as an
Oh
independent artist.
yeah, and there are people like, I know one of my friends who I know from comedy got created kind of a viral bootleg toy thing called Wicked Joyful.
Okay.
Nick LaValle is his name, and I knew him from running a show in New Hampshire, and then he, like, all of a sudden I'm seeing his stuff going around on memes everywhere, and it's like, I know that guy. So now you are from Buffalo,
Yep.
lived in Boston, worked in the military, where you were in the military for a little while. Like, give me
Yeah.
a soft, give me an origin story.
So I was born in Tonawanda, which is like a suburb of Buffalo. It's Buffalo. It's like Erie Canal,
I
like
thought,
nautical
I thought
town.
Buffalo was Buffalo.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Like, oh, like I say Buffalo because it's more identifiable.
Yeah,
Like,
like
but
are you a Loganberry fan?
yes,
Okay, because to me that
and a
just,
Birch beer fan.
well, I love birch beer. I mean, come on, I'm from New England.
Mm.
But Loganberry to me, because somebody told me about Loganberry and I tried it, and it tasted to me like I was drinking just slush puppy syrup.
Yep, it's sweet as hell.
It is
Aunt
legit.
Rosie's Loganberry.
Yeah, it's like drinking nectar. It's very aggressive. Okay, so you're from the Buffalo
Yeah, from
area.
Tonawanda, Buffalo area, the greater Buffalo area. It's just like cities on the Erie Canal, essentially. Ended up joining the military after high school because I had no plan as to what I wanted to do with my life. And it's like, I got 4 years. They'll cover college and stuff. It wasn't like a patriotism thing. It was a mix of laziness and uncertainty as to what I wanted to do with my life.
That's
And
fair.
yeah, I did that for 10 years.
10 years. You were in the military for 10
10
years.
years.
I say that like I wasn't a teacher for that long. So you were in the
Oh,
military
yeah.
for why were you why so long?
So I got a really sweet gig. I joined the National Guard when I was 17. So I graduated high school at 17, joined the National Guard at 17, and then had to wait to ship out to basic training. After finishing basic, I ended up going active duty and then spending time. This is how I ended up in Boston. We got sent to work in Concord, Massachusetts at the Corps of Engineers building. And it was just such a sweet gig. My background in the military is I was a administrator, and then I ended up changing to be a medical administrator. So instead of doing a lot of this, like the grunt stuff, I didn't do any field stuff other than like your standard like yearly training and all that. We did like a stint in Germany for a very brief period of time for just like field training. But other than that, I was just a medical worker. And it started off kind of rough where we didn't really know what we were doing. We started this initiative called like a CBWT. No, it used to be CBHCO, Community Based Warrior Transition Unit, and then switched to it was something else, CBWC. It was like warrior based community-based warrior transition unit. They just changed the
They
verbiage because they didn't
they
like the
they
word.
love acronyms in the military, huh?
Oh yeah, it's
So
awful.
was it? It seems like that was something like a transitioning for soldiers to work their way into civilian life, or what was the
Yeah. So like because of the war, like people were getting activated
what
who were
war?
like really old. Like yeah, yeah, the war that we I guess it's over now. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we took our
that's a
ball and
whole
went
other
home,
story.
right?
Yeah, Jesus. But yeah, it was just guys that went over there, women and men who would go over and suffer some sort of trauma that was either mental health related, physically, and there was a couple of roads. We would test. I worked for a thing called the Medical Evaluation Board and the Physical Evaluation Board for Walter Reed. We
Mhm.
would adjudicate or we prepare the documents and do the health examinations for these people who either wanted to stay in or wanted to get out. And our job was, and this is the mission statement of my colonel, who him and I became friends somehow. Like he's just a super cool guy, but he was like a colonel, so I was
He was
terrified of
a
him for the
cool
first
no.
couple of years. Yeah, yeah, he was a cool colonel, a cool. But geez, like he had this mission statement where it's like, we will, if someone comes back injured from this conflict, we will do everything possible to make sure that they have everything they need for the rest of their lives. You will get them free health care. You will get them documents stating that this was indeed tied to service. We would research and suss out injuries that possibly weren't, but 90% of the time it was people who had service-connected injuries. And a lot of these units, they wanted nothing to do with it. So if the guy got injured, he went home, he's a coward, like he's a weakling or whatever, like that type of mentality. And we had to like pull teeth from these units to get documents saying like these were actually sustained overseas, and then do these physical evaluation boards and get these people either out of the military with adequate what's the word,
Compensation.
adequate disability
Yep.
percentages so their lives are not ruined, or find a way to train them to keep them in. There was a guy that lost his right hand that we trained how to shoot with his left hand just so he could stay in and finish his retirement.
I mean, I guess that makes that is good, I guess. It seems in a way, I mean, it's that whole like when you think of toxic masculinity, you definitely think of the military. It's definitely one of those
Oh yeah.
things where they're like, what he wants to leave? What is he, a gay guy? And you're like, what does that mean? Anything like that doesn't even make sense at this point in time. And I guess it's good to see that there are parts of the military that are designed to, because you hear about veterans and how poorly they're treated, and it's good to see that there were people doing everything they could to improve the lives of the people that no longer wanted to be a part of this system. Go ahead.
The crazy thing about the different areas of the military is they're vastly different.
Mhm.
Infantry and artillery and MP, you have kind of that douchebaggy masculinity stuff. The medical field, a lot of the doctors and stuff and the nurses, they'll be nurses and doctors on the outside. And what they'll do is they'll join the military with their careers already,
Mhm.
and they'll have their degree. They'll go to like a very short training period and they'll come out as an officer. So a lot of the staff at this place were all military, but it was people who were
Kind
like,
of like,
oh, I'm a nurse first and I'm a captain second.
yeah,
So
okay.
that whole like mentality thing was really tempered. It was significantly nicer.
These aren't the people that were tricked in a high school cafeteria, whereas
No,
oftentimes infantry, like that was like a big. I mean, I think I've said it before, but with like the whole like the support the troops thing, it's just somebody that got tricked in the high school cafeteria, which I think should be illegal, by the way. That
hmm.
they allow military recruitment in high schools. That just seems like gross.
It's so predatory, and they know exactly who to target as well. Because in high school, you can kind of tell like who doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and they just zone in on that person and just find a way to sell the whole idea to them, and they'll get them to sign up for like the worst jobs.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, people need to do those. So why not fool a dumb teenager? Yeah, I always found that to be like weird. Like even when I was in high school, I'd be like, why are they here? I was like, this doesn't make sense. It's not like murder's not a job. Like I was very like blown away by that as a kid, or as a teen, just being like, that doesn't seem like a fair job. The military, that's a thing. But I mean, I guess if you get in at a certain point in time, in a certain place, it's going to be a little bit different. So
It's really cool working with a lot of these guys too for their stories. Like a lot of people joined because they like either the patriotism thing or they like the concept of like serving your country. And then some of them were like, just, oh, I got married. I got a person pregnant really young. I needed money and I had no skills. So
yeah,
you felt really bad for these kids.
there's I almost joined I almost joined the Marines. Oof. in like summer of 2001.
Huh.
I was like, I almost like, I didn't
pre
like
9/11.
Yeah, I didn't like where my life was, and I was like, man, I should just join the Marines and just go somewhere and like get away from this place, because I was like, I had just broken up with my high school sweetheart and I was just like sad. So I was like, why don't I just do that? And then 9/11 happened and I was like, oh, thank God, because I am a coward. Like as soon as 9/11 happened, I was like, yeah, I literally dodged a bullet, because I was like, oh, I don't want to be in the military now after 9/11. That means I don't want to be in the military at all. So I really did sort of dodge the both literal and metaphorical bullet in that regard. Hey, Cory, did you know that I have a Patreon at patreon.com/JeffMay?
Yes, I do. And did I subscribe to your Patreon?
I like that. Thank you. Did you know that at the $10 producer level, the VIP level, that I will read your name as a producer on this show? You should know that. Yes. Because I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to give you guys
the ever-growing list.
It's capped at 100, and I think I'm almost there. I don't know what I'm doing here. It's fine. But so shout out to these 7 Bs, Lemming Malloy, Kool-Aid Molotov, Superman Family number 184, that scene in Meet Joe Black where Brad Pitt dies. SNK's Samurai Showdown 2 is really hard. I'm the Law, martial law, and I hate superheroes. Mr. Billy Beck. I don't care if it's women's deodorant, it works and it smells nicer. Kimball, just Kimball. Get vaccinated, you chuckleheads. The 5G lets you see sound, and then you can see your friends again. Let's go. You vaccinated, Cory?
Yep, just got it 2 days ago.
Really? Was that a time?
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Was that a time thing, or is it everybody have a hard time getting it?
A really hard time getting it.
This country.
Oh, it's Japan.
No, I know, but I'm saying in Massachusetts, or not Massachusetts, in the United States, everybody that wants it has it now.
Yep. And you guys have space.
Oh, we got a lot of space. But you know what? We're not? Tokyo. So there's that. Black Agar Boltagon. Big Booty Boy 42069. You get it. Russell from Jersey. Pizza, bagels, Taylor ham. You a Jersey fan? You ever been?
I was at a base there. I've never actually been outside the base though.
Really? So
it's just little New York, right?
Good.
It's like the parasite growing on New York.
Yeah, it's yeah. If New York had a tumor, it would be Jersey. Sorry for you, Jerseyites, Jerseyans, Jerseyans,
New Jerseyans. I have no idea.
Nobody knows. It's a mystery for the ages.
They don't even know.
Bold and brash, more like belongs in the trash. Meth J. I don't think that's a real name. Hi, I'm Super Fudge, and welcome to Fudgemania. Did you ever read those books as a kid?
Yes, and I can't remember anything about it. Was there like a TV show or a movie or something? It was like a kind of chubby kid or whatever, right?
There might have been a TV show. I would have aged out of that. But I read Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing and Super Fudge all the time. I was obsessed with them.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was about. I know the name, but I have no memory.
It was about like this kid, I think Peter, was like the main kid, and his little brother Fudge was like a troublemaking savant. That was like the whole thing. I don't know. Craft beers make
modern Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, right? Or an 80s Dennis the Menace, right? I think that's when that book was written. Craft beers make my alcoholism look like a neat hobby. Jez Butt is gonna be a dad. Shout out to Jez Butt on that one. He's gonna be a dad.
Oh, congrats.
He has, never mind. I was going to do a very graphic description of how you make a baby, but I think we get it. You want me to say that? You got to pay $10 for it. The Ian McClendon, El Trash Blogger Seldo, Connor Legally Actionable Threat Benson, Caitlin Binney, The Bullock, an action figure of Clippy. You should make one of those.
It's too hard.
It seems like it would
Microsoft
be.
people, man.
Oh, is that why? Yeah.
Yeah.
F*** 'em. F*** you, Bill Gates. You ain't getting.
He's canceled now. We can be mean to him.
Oh yeah, let's be mean to Bill Gates. I'm sure that couldn't have negative results. Dawn C2E2 AM Adventures, the sad Free Willy noise. Where's Bane? It's a Tom and Jeff Watch Batman reference. You listen to Tom and Jeff Watch Batman? You ever heard that one?
I haven't yet. I know very little about Batman.
It's okay. It's been going on for 3 years, so don't feel like you got to catch up real soon.
I got to start from the beginning. If I start,
there's
it's gonna
time.
Be like,
There's time. Don't worry. Children love the Meat Millie. Flesh, your friend. Magnolia Thunder. Oh, there it is. That's good. There's a lot of bleeps in this one. The last episode there wasn't a lot of cursing, so in this one apparently it came back up. Which look at that. The last episode, by the way, was one of my producers, Koi Fam Art and Mentoring. So if you want to check out Koi Fam's Art and Mentoring, do that. Frankly Amish, Bart Fartigan, Jennifer Fendelander, the most well-prepared dead guy. I didn't kill my wife. Adrian, Kelly Stanaway, Silius Ruby, Steven, Dr. DNA, Burrito Mouth. You guys get burritos in Japan? The good ones?
Yeah, but it's few and far in between that they're good.
Oh, okay. Do you have like spots where you get like American fare where you're like, I got to go to this place?
Yep, and I live like up the street from one of them, and it's fantastic.
What is it? Let's give them a plug.
It's El Pato over in Koenji, and it's the only place I've ever experienced in all of Japan that knows how to make actual buffalo wings.
You on your Instagram you're there a lot, aren't you?
Yep.
Because you tag
the
them.
owner and I are good friends.
Yes. Okay. Because I see that on your Instagram. So that's something. Twitch.tv/Firechild460. Lisa Harden, my co-producer on Mint on Card. We went to the Star Trek convention together last weekend. It was fun.
You guys at a con?
We went to the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, and I'm COVID negative.
That's awesome.
It was some, I'll tell you what, I was nervous. Like I almost canceled, but I was like, if there's one place that's going to be safe and people are going to believe in science, it's a Star Trek convention.
It's Star Trek convention.
I was like, there's no convention that's going to be like, unless it was a medical convention, like there was going to be nothing that was going to be that good. Huey Freeman, Taurus Bulba, Mind Freak 555, Cody Beck Jr., at Gavin_not with 2 T's, Jessica Robertson, Captain Fat Strong, Gregarious Gregorio, the AV Foundry, Domo Arigato, Andrew Robato, Domo. Jeff hates competitive fun. Oh, that's not true. I get it.
They saying you hate sports, man.
I can't believe they saying I don't even like sports. You liars. Gray Man of the Fireside Chronicles, Ricky Cilantro, at Nerd Numbers, Mackenzie Chill, Willem Dafoe's Baffling Big Bonanza, Dan Hackroyd, Murph the Murph, Show Me in the Rules where it says a dog can't play basketball, Russell Richardson, the Saspitch Stand, Sophia Hapgood's Psychic Services, The Ghost of Dave Thomas, Shebrew Sleeps, Norm from Cheers, Vortispin, Normal Man Andrew McGuire, Jolly Buckaroo, Dill Havarti, my favorite cheese, and Exploding Runes. And so if you are interested in being a VIP member at the Patreon, patreon.com/JeffMay, feel free to do that. If not, that's okay. I'm okay with it either way. I'm not offended. I always get, like, sometimes people cancel their memberships, and I'm sure it's just like a money thing or whatever. They're going to cut back. I take it personally every time. I'm lying when I say I don't take it personally. If I see somebody cancel their thing, I'm like, what did I do wrong and how can I fix it? I'm
Do you
very
get like a notification? Or I don't know how
I do.
Patreon works.
I do. I get notifications when people cancel. The biggest problem is when somebody cancels their $10 account and I have to message them and be like, "Hey, what name did you use? I got to cross it off my list." And that just seems petty.
Oh,
It's petty, but
yeah, because
I
all the
have
names are so
to.
different.
Yeah. So like nobody's using their real name, so it's just like, all right.
You don't think the ghost of Dave Thomas is actually supporting the Patreon?
He might. He might be a fan of the show, although I'm not a Wendy's fan.
No one is.
I think a lot of people are. I think their Twitter really saved them.
Oh yeah, them and Arby's had like a big like corporate like we're cool now thing.
Wendy's is like I would say Wendy's is probably like there are a couple of corporate accounts that are like the ones that really like I remember Moon Pie. Like
Moon Pie
Moon
has
Pies.
social media.
And they like came out of nowhere. And I bought Moon Pies because of their Twitter. So that works. That worked for them. Good for them. Steakum. Steakum is like super progressive. Like the guy, whoever runs Steakum, and I said the guy, that's not correct. Could be a woman. Very progressive. And DiGiorno, I think the DiGiorno guy, and then the Arby's guy used to do a bunch of like cutouts and like
the cardboard paper craft.
Yeah.
Stuff. And it got really weird, like not weird, but like really specific. Like I'm a big anime and video game fan, and they were acknowledging really obscure titles that were coming out. Where it's like this is a very specific type of nerd.
You could tell it was
Arby's more, but I appreciated it.
It was a clear like that person is a clear anime dork, and I'd see it and be like, oh, that's an interesting choice to make in this. Like, it looks cool though. So okay, so there are interviews where you talk about why you moved to Japan. I've read them. So I don't need to like say, tell me the whole process, but like I just want to know what the thought behind why you chose to move to Japan was.
Half of it is purely my desire to make toys and try having a career here in Japan, specifically before I turned 30. I think I was 28 when I moved here. And the other half of it is I just was so bored of my job. I was working at Children's Hospital at the time.
Boring. Ugh.
It's not that it was that part's fine, but it was just all the red tape that comes with insurances and people having to get care, and it's really draining. Like it sucks. Like these people who legitimately like they need these services, they need these specialists, but you have like a really low tier insurance, you can't use our expensive hospital. And like there's workarounds. Like the hospital, you'd see the staff and the doctors like bending over backwards to help these people, but the insurance companies, they don't want to play ball, and it sucks. So it was just kind of draining to do that. I did it for a little over a year as a transition between the military and this. And then one day I was just like, hey, like I think I'm going to try and do this career thing I've always wanted to do. Like, thanks for the opportunity. It was fantastic. And then just ghosted.
And was that toys? Was that the career that you wanted to do? Or was that like you'll figure it out? So we have very similar stories in that regard then. Where you're just like, I'm going to move far
that's
away.
Your comedy quest, right?
I'm going to move far away to pursue something that I'm interested in. Yeah.
Leaving a solid career to pursue something.
Leaving a solid career in Massachusetts to pursue something. I mean, the similarities are not lost on me. So you get to Japan. What do you think?
I had been several times before. I always loved Japan, but there's something that I always forgot about hearing that I didn't expect to encounter because I never knew I was going to be living here. And that's like the weird racism that comes with getting like apartments and like actually setting up like your living situation there.
Really?
It's hard.
So like, but you can't just gloss over that. Tell me more about that.
So there's here a foreigner is anyone who isn't Japanese. It's a really homogenous culture here. And
I used to teach Japanese history. That's rooted in very, very long-term thought too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like their whole thing is just them being like just Japanese, having like just these little communities pop up eventually, but just these tiny little enclaves of non-Japanese.
Yeah.
But so I came here, and the the issue with the foreigner thing is like a foreigner's anyone from anywhere that
Mhm.
isn't Japanese, even like China, Korea, Taiwan, anyone who isn't Japanese, you're a foreigner. And a lot of rental places, it's as illegal to say we don't rent to foreigners here as it is to not hire someone in the States because they were Middle Eastern or Black or Asian.
Mhm.
Like it's the same level of like protection, but just like in the States, there's a lot of scumbags that still do it.
Yeah.
And
Well, they don't have to tell
it's
you
not
why they didn't
enforced.
give it to you. Yeah.
Places will you'll call an apartment. I remember looking up apartments and calling the realtors, and they're like, actually, that company doesn't work for foreigners, and it's not a language thing. It's straight up they don't want to deal with foreigners because I guess after the earthquake as well, a lot of foreigners just vanished because they were so freaked out by the massive earthquake that they broke their leases, they didn't pay stuff, they just vanished. So that also reinforced the hey, well, we're a bunch of old people who are kind of racist against like people who are different from us living in our like places, the buildings that we own. And now, oh, we have another reason to hate them. They don't pay their bills because they just vanish when like a natural disaster happens.
Which is
So it took me
not
months to
uncommon in
find a place.
Japan.
Yeah, it's been pretty good recently. We haven't had too many, but there was a period of time in the spring where every other day was an earthquake.
Yeah, in California, they don't happen as often as people think. My mom thinks there's an earthquake every day. Or are you okay? I saw a 3.8 magnitude earthquake. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Shook us up a little bit.
I don't think I've ever seen an earthquake in California. I've never experienced one personally. Is it how hard did they hit? Like
Depends. Sometimes
hmm.
they're not nothing, but for the most part, they're whatever. I'd rather deal with like a medium earthquake once in a while than a blizzard ever.
I miss the snow, man.
I do.
I miss the snow so bad.
I mean, you're in Japan. You could access the snow.
Yeah, but then you got to go to it. Like, in America, I could drive up to Canada and go to the tundra. It's like Nagano's all snow.
That's
But yeah, the apartment thing is just a mess
Yeah,
here
oh yeah.
with rentals because it's just these people that don't want to deal with foreigners, and they'll use the dumbest excuses. Well, a foreigner's not going to understand how the garbage system works here. Oh, a foreigner's not going to understand like that you're not allowed to like scream and play electric guitar at 11 at night. Like these are things I had to sign in my lease agreement. The first place I got was, oh, you're not allowed to do like one of the things that's in a lot of the Japanese apartment contracts is you can't do karaoke in your house at night, and because a lot of people have like home karaoke.
It's terribly
it's a huge
popular there.
pastime.
Yeah.
But I had to sign a thing saying that instead of having the 3-strike policy, if I up once, you can kick me out. Just because I was so desperate to have a place to live, and everything was fine. The girl who lived above me actually had flooded her house and flooded my closet the second week I was there. So I was golden.
My God.
Yeah, I wasn't the troublemaker at that point.
No, you did great. Okay, so now you've been in Japan now for how long?
8 years.
So you've been there for 8 years, and you speak Japanese now?
I speak a bit. My particular language skills are really honed in on my career, like how to do layouts for molds, how to set up the actual jointing systems for toys, ordering materials, and that type of stuff. I can do normal conversation, but my word bank is a bit limited. I can talk about really strange things for long periods of time, but basic like if I went to like the ward city office, that type of although the terminology they use, I don't really know all of it yet.
Oh, fair enough. Do you go to the embassy for your passport stuff and everything?
For passport renewals, it's the embassy, but for my visa, actually, because I had to set up a company here to live here, I have a lawyer that does all my renewal stuff.
Oh,
so I just go
look
to
at this
his
guy.
place.
Oh, that must be
That
nice.
dude's awesome.
So now, are you a weeb? I guess
No,
that's the
I
question
was
that
never a weeaboo. I was just really into anime and games. So a weeaboo is the rejection of Western culture, saying that Japan is superior.
Okay, and you hate Japan.
And yeah, no, I could never. There's too many things I love about the West, and it's also like it's a really weird way to think. It's like those dudes that like, and you see more dudes than you see women doing this, where they just act like they're an anime character. Like those in the West, you guys have those really crazy people, those toxic bags that like their whole personality is like the Joker or Rick from Rick and Morty or something like that. It's that with anime characters. It's like your ultimate weeaboo guy.
So do you get a lot of neckbeards out there, like the tourists that would come out? Like, do you see a lot of fedoras?
You see some fedoras, but the most embarrassing thing you see is people lightly cosplaying. So you'll see like people who are like just tour, like on vacation or whatever, back when you could have tourists, and they'd be wearing like, you know, there's an anime One Piece about a pirate.
Yes, it's got the guy with
like,
the straw hat and the red shirt.
Yeah, and they'll be wearing like a red like shirt thing, like a little red vest and a straw hat over their outfit. Or like a Goku, like Super Saiyan, like one of those really gross foam wigs. And it's just, you immediately turn around when you see that.
My God. Like, because I'm guessing that you might, in a way, be sort of like a beacon to other gaijin. Like that they see you and they see your, you know, you've got sleeve tats and you're a blonde white guy. And they're like, this is my people. And you're like, please don't talk to me.
A lot of like other foreigners will avoid foreigners here because you never know how awkward, or especially in Japan, how weirdly like creepy or misogynistic the other foreigner is going to be. There's a lot of bags here. I encountered way more shitbag foreigners in Japan than I ever did in the military.
Really?
Like people that come over here, most common job for a person that wants to to Japan or a lot of Asia is English teacher.
Yeah.
And you really don't need a lot of credentials. You need like a bachelor's degree, and anything beyond that is just a plus. And a lot of those people, some of them are really nice. They needed a leg into Japan. They're studying Japanese, or they legitimately like education. And some of them are like, oh, I came here to get me one of them subservient Japanese women.
They're sex tourists, basically.
They suck. They are the worst kind of person.
Yeah, guys that are fetishizing an entire country are bad. Weird.
And they hang out in these enclaves, and you can never tell who it's gonna be because you would assume it's like, you know, the kind of looking guy who looks like he's only here to like and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's weebs, like there's straight up like big old, like not airbrush t-shirt, but one step from that type of weeaboos who are like, oh, people in America, they don't understand me, they don't get me. Japan, I'm gonna fit in Japan, you know, a country that's famous for its collectivist culture.
Yeah, I would say living in Japan, like moving to Japan to like pull has got to be like the saddest thing. Like like that motion, that movement to move across the entire world just because you'd be like, maybe women would like me there. I'm tall. And it's like
the subreddits are really poisonous for it. Like the Japan life one and stuff. You'll see people who are like, oh, I met a girl in a bar and I need to move here because I think she's the one. And it's like, but then you see all this other stuff where you go through their post history and it's like, they were asking about like, you know, how to basically do PUA stuff, like the pickup artist stuff, like earlier.
That's gross. That's gross. Really gross. Yeah. I mean, that's got to be fun to be there and to see that happening. Do you sort of stick out like a sore thumb out there still? Or have you been sort of like, what's the percentage of people that are American, for example, that live out there?
It's like 1% of the population is foreign, I believe. But it's in Tokyo. Like if you go to the outskirts, you go to like Shizuoka is like maybe an hour from Tokyo. It's kind of it's a city. It's actually Japanese for Silent Hill.
Oh, great. Funny.
But yeah, less ghosts. But you'll see less foreigners than Tokyo. Tokyo, it's just so compacted. Mm-hmm. It's like if New York City was an entire
it's a city.
Jeez, New York City was an entire state essentially.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you are going to get the most diversity in a city. But do you, like, so aside from that, because I was wondering about this, and I know obviously people are probably going to want me to talk more about the toy stuff, and I plan on it. That's on the docket. But I'm actually very fascinated about this because, like, I've thought about like, oh, Japan would be cool to go to, and I'm not sure I would fit in a lot of things in Japan. Like I'm not.
There's a little bit of ducking and stuff,
Yeah,
especially in some of the older buildings. But yeah, you'll be fine.
yeah,
You'll find the beds at a lot of the business hotels to be incredibly small,
yeah. That's a
like
thing.
comically small.
Yeah, like I don't know if that would work for me. You know, I gotta sleep. I gotta sleep on a thing. I gotta sleep. I gotta fit on a bed. I tried sleeping on a full size bed one time, and my feet literally hung off the end. And I was like, "This is some
That
sh-.
size that they have at a lot of business hotels is
I
the full
can't
size.
do it, man. I need a queen at minimum queen. That's what they call me.
It's be Gulliver's Travels here
Yeah,
with the size
Gulliver
proportions.
travels to Tokyo. Is so I was wondering, is like American pop culture readily available there? I mean, I know obviously streaming stuff is, but like I feel like such a rube asking these questions, but I feel like they're questions that aren't necessarily asked
Oh, no, it's a legitimate question.
like
Like American
academically.
comic stuff really took off. Like specifically for pop culture, like comics and movies, the Marvel movies really pushed the Marvel stuff back into the forefront of just it being more accessible. Like there's Japanese collaborations, like the company Takara Tomy does stuff with Marvel and does stuff with Disney for well, I guess it's all Disney now,
Yeah,
but for like Star Wars. Before it was like kind of rare. It was mainly American import stuff, and there was a lot of Japanese bootleg stuff. There's
really.
actually there's a lot of old model kits. There's an event called Wonder Festival where you can do like licensed model kits for a day, but you can't get the Star Wars license. So
I
people just make their own and give it a different name.
I read that. What two things? One, I read that in an interview with you that you were talking about that one day licensing thing, which I thought was really interesting. But then didn't you recently receive like a bootleg Vader or something like that?
Oh, so that's actually that toy is from a tokusatsu series. Tokusatsu is like Japanese special effects shows like Power Rangers and Masked Rider.
Okay, yeah.
And Godzilla too. Like almost any of the old Toho like man in a suit stuff is all like it's
Spider-Man.
called tokusatsu. The Toei Spider-Man is like tokusatsu. But the it's a robot monster from this show called Mega Beast Investigator Juspian, where his name's Satan Goth, and he's made of all the negative energy in the universe. And he just goes around making these giant kaiju go insane. But he just looks just like Darth Vader. They
Like,
clearly just took Darth Vader.
yeah, like upsettingly Darth Vader.
I want to
Um,
say his sword glows red too. Like it's just
yeah.
a blatant ripoff.
One of my funniest things is because you did post something basically earlier today or yesterday for you about that. And and you were just like, all orders have been shipped. And then David Mandel, the executive producer of Veep and like a writer for Curb and Seinfeld and was like, is it too late to order? Can I order? And when I saw that, I was like, that is a weird thing to see on that. Like you have some interesting fans.
It's people love toys, like especially weird stuff. And recently, I've been getting into licenses. So, like, an Ultraman's kind of like getting popular in the West.
I
So
was
I'm
gonna
doing a lot of Ultraman licensed stuff.
Marvel got the Ultraman license,
Yep, all
which is
the comics are Marvel, right?
yes. And I was wondering, because I was going to ask you about that, if you had collected when you were younger and when I was younger. Like I know Bandai used to do the soft vinyl Ultraman figures and
Yep,
Godzilla figures. Did you collect any of those as a kid?
yep. I used to. I wasn't never a big Godzilla guy. I really like Hedorah, who's like the big like smog guy.
Yeah, the
But
smog monster,
Ultraman,
right?
yeah, he's cool. He just looks like a big pile of melting green stuff.
Yeah.
But Ultraman, they have the most bizarre monster designs.
Yeah.
And I would just buy every single one that came out in the States because they would import them. There was a place called, I think, Kimono My House in California. It
Mhm.
used to be like a Japanese toy shop, and I would email them and they would send me a list like, hey, we got these ones in. You want us to invoice you and send them? It turns so like the guy that used to work there is now one of my best friends here. He's another toy maker.
Really?
Yeah, I think he worked there maybe towards his exit from that job might have been around the time I started buying these things from them. But yeah, same guy. It was super insane, like it being the same person.
Because I remember I had a friend that used to collect those when we were in middle school, like real, like young. So we're talking like early 90s, or more like mid 90s. But
That's back when they were, I think, still made in Japan. I think they were
yes,
made in Japan until like the mid '90s or maybe early '90s, and then they switched to China.
it was like 92 to 95 or whatever I remember. And I mean, I watched the shows and I liked the designs, but like for me, toys were something posable and playable, and these were more like models to me
Yeah,
at the time.
they're like glorified statues.
Yeah. And like now that and like, by the way, they're worth like a ton now. Like a lot of those like the ones from the early 90s, because I've seen them once and I'm like, oh, I remember Ryan had that, and it's like, yeah, that's $175, and you're like, oh,
There's some of them like the '70s that are worth like $6,000,
oh, I would think so. I mean, when you look
even
at
if it's busted.
too, like the Shogun Warriors and their popularity in the 70s, that
Yeah, Jumbo
came,
Machine there.
and yeah, Machine Dare and packing Godzilla and Rodan in to give them something to combat was very interesting.
Mm.
Godzilla's popularity in America is pretty much due to cable television.
Oh yeah, they would play a lot of those creature feature things, right?
Well, because in the 70s they had, all of a sudden you had all these channels and they didn't have enough to put on them. And so they were buying the Godzilla films, which there had already been plenty, and they would eat up a big chunk of time. One Godzilla movie that would take up 3 hours of blocking, and you get it for pennies on the dollar. So on weekends, like Godzilla movies and kung fu movies used to just play through the 70s, just on all cable. So that's what became super popular. It's fascinating.
It's so weird watching any of those Godzilla movies now, because I remember as a kid, like I would always beg my mom, like, "Oh, I want to see Destroy All Monsters. I want to see Godzilla versus Hedorah." And then you'd watch it, and it's like 10 minutes of actual like creature footage, and the rest of it is like political intrigue that I could not give a shit about.
It's funny though, because the new movies, a lot of people, there was this thing where people were like, do you really want just monsters fighting? And people are like, yes. And I'm like, you don't. Like, if you don't give something to latch on to, it's not going to be as good as you think it is. Like a 2-hour movie that's just Godzilla versus King Kong and no human weight to it whatsoever is not going to be what you think it is. Which is why I was
there was a really is that the Kong Godzilla one?
Well, Godzilla, I just referenced Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh,
but,
okay.
There's King of the Monsters, right? Godzilla King, that was the second one, and then Godzilla was the first one, right?
Is because you saw Kong Godzilla, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Is it mainly just them beating the shit out of each other, or is there like?
Oh, they get weird with it. They get 70s with it. They do they do Hollow Earth. It's wild, yeah. Definitely.
Is it full of Nazis or aliens?
You see it. Just see it. You should see it. Is there a reason you haven't seen it yet?
I've been apprehensive about going to theaters because I hadn't gotten my shot. And the first, you have a bit of protection with the first one, and then you're fully protected after the second one within reason. So we saw Suicide Squad after getting poked.
It just occurred to me that you might not have access to HBO Max, which is where Godzilla vs. Kong premiered. I just realized, I was like, oh, yeah, they might not have that in Japan. I don't know what the rules are.
It has Hollow Earth stuff in it.
Yeah.
Oh, this sounds awesome.
It's pretty awesome. It's fun. It's really fun. I did not like the one, the second one, the one with Ghidorah. I was not a huge fan of it. I didn't think the story was particularly good, and it was a lot of just monsters crashing into each other. And also that seemed like a DC movie, because they were trying to hurry up and get the big bad already. When it took Marvel 4 years for the Avengers to like build. And then
but it was nice. It was like a really slow tease forever.
And then Avengers was like the biggest movie ever. And then DC's like, well, let's do that now. And they're like, well, maybe pace yourself a little bit. And they're like, no. And so by putting Ghidorah in the sequel, I was like, I don't know, man. I feel like he should be held on to. You should wait for him.
Yeah, he's kind of a final boss guy for that original arc of, because he comes back as like Mecha Ghidorah and
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, he's like a Thanos.
Like,
he's
too strong.
He's the Thanos of the Godzilla universe. For those that don't know, Ghidorah is the three-headed like dragon, also known as Monster X, from space, and he is kind of the Thanos of the Godzilla universe. So by adding him immediately into that canon, when you could have done Mothra and Rodan and Gamera, all these different characters, and instead they're just like, here's the one you've been waiting for. I felt like they could have waited.
Yeah, they jumped the gun. It is just like the Justice League thing, where it's like, oh, second movie, Justice League.
Yeah, and it's like, wait,
third
what?
movie. Wonder Woman had a movie at that point.
Yeah, well, because they did Batman, they did Superman, they did Man of Steel, then they did Batman versus Superman, where they threw Wonder Woman in it too.
Mm-mm.
And then they did, one, but it just came so fast, and they weren't good.
No. You were asking about the pop culture stuff here for the West.
Yes.
So like, speaking of the comics, like, it really got pushed to be more popular because of those movies. But there's American comic shops. You can't go to a normal shop, like a normal like bookshop here, and get American comics.
No, because it would be all manga, right?
Shop.
Yeah, because I'm assuming
it's all manga and light novels.
I would assume it has to be imported. The comics at that point.
They have distributors. I don't know what the printing system is, but they have distributors that do them just for Japan. We have I want to say we have the Diamond catalogs here.
Well, they just lost Diamond just lost a lot of the marketing. I mean, a lot of their distribution rights. So that's But are they so do they do the Western comics with Japanese word balloons, or is it all just like an American version of
all the ones I've seen are just with English?
Oh, well, that's pretty cool. And then with like
you'll find a lot of the fans here will who are really into those, like, oh, I follow Spider-Man in real time or whatever, they speak a bit of English where they can like read it and understand it. But it's also, you see Spider-Man punch Electro, you don't need to know what he's saying, Spider-Man's beating up Electro.
Yeah,
but you find weird, like, just tiny little shops. Like, none of these American comic places are big. They're all really small, like independent retailers who are like in we actually have one in my town, and there's one over in Akihabara called Blister. Akihabara is like the big nerd, like electronics mecca of Tokyo. Okay. And it's just that stuff. They'll have the action figures, they'll have like your McFarlane type figures, they'll have like all the what are those called? The newer Marvel ones and the DC ones that come with like pieces of other figures and be buyable.
Marvel Legends,
the Legends series. Grossly inflated for import costs, but they'll have all that stuff and people buy it. Like, people legitimately get excited about it, and it's cool because you'll encounter people who have some of the same. While I was watching like Evangelion and I was playing Final Fantasy, like, these folks were really into Superman and were watching Static X, trying to see like what was going on.
Oh, Static Shock.
Static Shock. Oh my god!
I was like, Static X is a metal band.
It's a band.
They're like a metal to new metal band, right?
Yep.
Funny story about that. The first time I ever ran a mile without stopping, I was listening to the cassette single of "Push It" by Static X.
Oh man, the cassette.
Well, it was the only reason I had to get a cassette. I had to seek them out; they weren't readily available. But it was around the year 2000. It was like the end of the year 2000, and I couldn't run with a CD player at the time.
Oh yeah, because they skip like crazy.
Yeah, I couldn't do that, and I don't exactly run like a graceful swan. I'm more like a stumbling goose, just screaming and dying. I want to shift to like the sort of like what you're known for, which is the toys, and you got into like what steered you into getting into this world?
I was a collector of toys, initially starting with the Bandai Ultra Monster stuff, and then realizing, because that's all licensed, mass produced. Mm-hmm. That's just standard. The term is Sofubi or Sofubi. It's just the shortening of the word soft vinyl, or in Japanese, softubino. So it'd be Sofubi. Mm-hmm. And it's just soft vinyl toys. I was into them because the designs are really unique. Again, starting with the Ultraman stuff, and even like Hedora and like Robo. I guess the name of that series, Robopon or Robo. I think Robocon. They had like a bunch of weird like just characters, and you know Newberry Comics, right? In Boston.
Oh yeah, for a wicked good time.
They had some of them. Oh yeah, for a wicked good time. They had some of them, and I was getting turned on to these designs I had never seen, and became obsessed with like, oh, how weird did these get? And then discovered through eBay of all places, independent made soft vinyl, and a maker named Mori Katsura who ran a company called Reelhead. He actually, this is a visual. I know it's an audio format, but this tattoo here, this lucky cat.
It's a cat.
It's one eye.
It's a one-eyed cat like that you often see in those the Asian import shops. The gold. I call him the arm wrestling cat because he's doing like the wave, but it looks like he's kind of arm wrestling.
So he made a soft vinyl toy of that with one eye, and it's something so simple. It was red and had really good paint, and I just became obsessed with it. Bought it on eBay. It was like, I think $50, and I'm like, oh man, this is kind of expensive. Now they're like worth $400, $500, but that led me down the path of like, well, this isn't made by Bandai. This isn't made by Tomy. This is some guy I've never heard of. What's Reelhead? And you couldn't find anything on it because he didn't really have social media. He didn't have a computer at that time. He was like kind of a Luddite for a while. Now he's like a social media like expert because he's like especially in Asia and America, he's like this beloved toy maker. So I ended up finding a forum called Skullbrain, which is like a Western forum for people who collect Japanese toys. And I found threads on, oh, Reelhead, what else do they make? Oh, they have all these amazing toys that are like heavily inspired by Ninja Turtles and Kamen Rider and Star Wars, like really, really cool designs. Ended up sussing out like the stuff I wanted his, trying to get it. And then I saw, oh, well, what's Secret Base? What's Amapro? What's like all these other Japanese toy makers. And it's like, wait a minute, these guys are all independent toy makers. They're not all working together. They're all these like separate makers, like, and through them you see their circle of friends, almost kind of like a web ring, like where like their websites would have links to other toy makers or like blogs or magazines. And I just discovered this world I never knew existed of independent makers making their own stuff. And then I researched how to do it and just became obsessed with, well, I have ideas. I want to see how to make this stuff.
Well, it's funny too, because Valerie Tossi, who was my partner, her cousin is a guy named Matt Doty, and they're a company called Onel Design.
Oh no.
So, so it was like, you know, my partner's cousin was making these things as well. And so I'm at DesignerCon meeting, you know, a family member, you know, of a girl I'm dating. And then, you know, it's this weird world that is super tight. Like you knew him. You just know him.
I knew him because he worked with Reelhead.
So there you go.
So not only was the Onel stuff popular here because it's like highly playable, highly customizable action figures, he also, like, his company had collaborated with my favorite toy maker to make a Sofubi version of one of their characters, one of their Glyos guys.
Oh, so I have the Glyos. I have some Glyos over here, and like I have one that's on the card still, and then I have a Wolverine that I'm holding up to the camera
awesome.
to show. That's still in the bag. I didn't want to open it out of the bag because I thought it was just so cool. So that,
and they're from like Acton or something, right?
Yeah, it's Massachusetts. Yeah, surprise.
Yeah.
So it's such a weird and tight community where it seems like everybody knows each other, which is why DesignerCon I thought was really fascinating, because it really had an even tighter knit group than like a Comic-Con that I had been to before. Like everybody was super supportive of each other, which I thought was really cool.
There's a weird camaraderie with the toy thing. Like, obviously, there's people that have issues with each other because they think they're ripping off their designs, or you're fighting for like the same consumer base for a lot of like, oh, I make if you make horror themed stuff, or if you make kind of
Mhm.
gross like monster toys, like maybe you're fighting for the same customers as like another guy, but so many of the makers are so different that we all kind of exist in the same space. My customers are not the same as or fans and customers the same as like another maker. So we exist in the same world and we're not fighting for territory.
Mhm.
And that's kind of nice. Like I think especially when it comes to like artists, there's a lot of just unpredictability as to what they get hung up on or if they're upset about.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I was doing it 6 months before you. I should be mad that you're like hopping on this bandwagon of making stuff. Or the opposite with it, where they join late, but I'm making stuff after you, but I have a background in doing sculptures, so I have more. It's almost like a right thing, like, oh, I have more of a right to be making these things, and there are some people like that,
Yeah,
but
that's just
because of the lack of
people. Yeah.
the lack of events, the pandemic has kind of culled some of those people.
Now,
They're not dead. They're just they haven't been able to sell stuff. They just kind of fell into obscurity because they never really cared about it.
they never built like an online following in the same way that one could. Because I mean, not for nothing, but when I was working at Sideshow over the pandemic, they had their best year ever because people had money to spend. Like it was,
And they wanted a tiny little statue to be hanging out in their house because they were lonely.
yeah. So they were like, I need Jean Grey. I need Jean Grey. Who among us does? But that being said, when we talk about that world and everything, and was the pandemic harder for you for what you do, or was it almost easier to streamline your life a little bit?
It was harder because of the unpredictability of shipping.
Yeah.
Being able to get stuff to customers was one of the hardest. The canceling of shows, because doing shows, the big thing here, for the longest time, Japan is a massive physical media world. Like CDs, we still have Tower Records here. CDs are still big. Magazines, like hundreds of magazines every month. Some of them, like the gaming magazines, every week. It's just a huge physical media thing. Japanese customers like to physically have a thing. They like to touch it and see it before they buy it. When they do pre-orders for toys, like companies in the States will usually post like a photo of the statue or a photo of the toy.
Mm-hmm.
In Japanese shops, like where to go. Like you can see, like several shops will have it on display. They want to see it before they buy it. And even at shows, they'll pick up and look at the thing to make sure, like, oh, this is what I want to buy. So
That's
online shopping
not wrong.
is kind of like, yeah, it's smart, like because you won't be disappointed.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
online shopping was not nearly as big. It's big now, but it wasn't as big in the early 2000s and then mid when I ended up moving here for the first time. And the shows, like physically going to the shows and meeting the customers and the fans, was important because you want to know your base, and they bring you gifts and stuff, and everyone just likes talking. Like,
yeah,
we just had a show last week, and everyone was telling me about, like, there's a movie called Psycho Goreman. That's like an American.
Yeah. Everybody
it's really
loves it.
similar to Japanese movies, like
Yeah.
the tokusatsu, like costume stuff, and a bunch. It's playing here now finally, and a bunch of the fans were telling me, like, hey, I just saw this Canadian film, like, I want to tell you about it. Like, oh, so American people like tokusatsu, or like not American, well, Western people like tokusatsu that much? They
Some
like
do.
that type of like Planet of the Apes, like those
Yeah.
costumes.
Oh yeah. And well, Adam Todd Brown is the one that told me to watch Psycho Goreman.
It's awesome.
He loved it. And it's funny because, and then both former guests of Jeff Has Cool Friends, Adam Todd Brown told me to watch Psycho Goreman, and Dana Gould keeps telling me to watch the old Planet of the Apes.
He's Dr. Zayas in the YouTube series.
Have you watched it? Hanging with Dr. Z?
I follow the Instagram posts, and then I've seen some of the interview things on YouTube, but I also didn't realize until you interviewed him that he was Gex.
He's Gex. Isn't that wild?
I had no idea.
Dude, after that episode, so many people tweeted at us being like, I think you guys can do a Gex. Like, a lot of people want Gex back. Which is wild. That is wild. Yeah. But this isn't about him. Okay. So how much of your business is based locally with orders?
So pre-pandemic, it was like 70% was local shows. There was a show every other month, and like shipping within Japan, and the rest of it, like the West would kind of get like certain exclusives, and then they would get like the leftovers from those shows if there were any.
Mm-hmm.
Post-pandemic, it's gone completely the other way. Like it's 70% is online, and then because we just haven't had shows. We just Wonder Festival, that licensed one that was going to be in 30 days, just got canceled.
So I'm looking at your website, sciencepatrol.storeenvy.com. And I am on there right now, and I'm looking at what you have available for sale, and it is all sold out. You have one thing left. Two things. You have micro shakokitachi. I don't know if I said that properly. And I believe I have a couple of those, right?
I think I sent you some in that box. And I think I got the sculpt at DCon, and then I finished them over afterwards. And
a Blitzkrieg Toys Tombstone set. You listed.
Yeah, that's not even me.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you listed a lot of stuff, and you do not. It sells out. How fast does this stuff sell out? Because you have this thing called Cranston, which is essentially what looks like a McDonald's cheeseburger with eyes.
It's literally the McDonald's cheeseburger from the chair from the 80s. And I just made a smaller version of it because they're not licensed here. So I can kind of sell them without repercussions here. Which is cool.
It's what I was like, I want one. And they were.
I'll totally send you one. It's hard to keep them in stock because they're so popular. I put up 50 and they sold out in like a minute and 30 seconds.
That's what I was going to say. Like I was going to go buy one, and they were sold out, and I was like, Jesus, man. And it's funny because when the irony is that when you're so close to somebody's like because I follow you for professional reasons, of course, because you do cool shit, but primarily because I like you and you're my cool friend. Copyright 2021.
Hey, he said the name.
He said that thing. But that being said, it took me a minute to be like, oh, like these things sold out immediately. And that is impressive. So how long does it take on average for stuff to sell out?
I have about 70 something designs that I've done, but recently, because I want to prioritize the ones that are popular and the ones that I keep getting emails about, there's like maybe 20 something designs I'll rotate. And of those 20, there's I think 5 that are kind of the top that if I do a release of those, I have to give people a heads up because I know they'll sell out immediately. And it's Cranston, the hamburger. It's Grand Hunt and Wild Hunt, which are the skeletons. And then recently we did a Doulahan, which is like the headless Irish folklore monster. And then there's what was it? What the heck is the name of it? There's a hammer toy that I make, which is supposed to be like this it's a Japanese like hammer based on like an old folk story. It's like a good luck item. But any of those things, any of those like 5 items, when I put up, if I put them up, I will literally get notifications from people being like, I'll say like the drop goes live at noon. I'm getting mail at like 11:52 noon, being like, hey, when's it gonna start? When's it gonna start? When's it gonna start? And then I put it up, and it'll just get inundated. My phone will not stop ringing. When I debuted those dogus, the shakokitachi, the big ones.
You're telling me words that I'm pretending to know.
It's insane. Like those particular toys are like they'll sell out immediately. Other stuff it'll sell out within the day or sell out within a couple of hours. Wow. But yeah, I kind of have to make sure that I give everyone a heads up because the big issue in this industry is reselling of items. Like any collection item, like people that go to Comic-Con and buy those exclusives and they resell them for a bunch of money. It's the same thing with this.
Is that frustrating to you?
Buy them and resell them.
Or is that frustrating to you, or are you like kind of like, yes, this is awesome?
It's frustrating to me. It's cool because like, oh, people really. I use it as a metric to know I need to make more of this thing because clearly I sell them for.
Yeah, the demand is too high. Yeah, like Cranston is at $35, right?
They used to be 27, and then I had to increase the price because I had to outsource the production.
Well, that being said, even if you like, that's a good enough price anyway, and it clearly works because it's sold out. But it's such a cool. What's the size? Is it the size of a burger?
Yeah, it's literally like hamburger size. I bought like a McDonald's hamburger here and just measured it. And it's like, I'll add like 2 centimeters just to account for shrinking. And that should be the correct size.
And was it? Yeah. Did you nail that?
Yeah, pretty close. It's a nicer size because it's like nice and firm. Yeah. And like actually like the patty isn't smushed and the bread's not smushed because it's a toy. It's how they should look.
How's it feel when something like that sells out so fast? Like if maybe you didn't know, like when you put Cranston up for the first time, like what was the feeling like when it sold out so quickly?
It was like a validation because I made it because I really like that design, and I feel like they don't make enough merch of it, and also like people make parody things of everything, and no one had parodied it, and no one had done a parody of it yet. And it's like, oh, I really like this character. Other people have to like this design. And it was really validating, like, yes, other people do like this design.
So the McDonald's, you said it's like unlicensed in Japan or something?
So those characters themselves, the Happy Meal gang, were never licensed here. So it's the only, yeah. So I'm good selling it here, and I can sell it internationally, but also it's slightly different from the actual design. Mm-hmm. So it's, in the States, I can sell it under parody.
Would you do the rest of that gang?
The cup. I have the cup. He's going to be done, I think, in September. And then I'm changing the way the fries look because I hate the fries for the original Happy Meal gang. Like the burger is really cute. The cup's really cute. The fries is essentially a human face on a bag of fries. With like the hair is the fries. I want the fries. I'm gonna make it so that fries kind of have like the eyes on them, almost like alien, like. So
they're gonna be
STEM eyes.
They're gonna be for eyes.
Oh yes.
See what I did there?
Yes, they will.
They're gonna be for eyes. For eyes.
It's just the old one is so horrifying.
What if you did a chase of the horrifying version?
I would want to do it way more realistically. This is kind of deep cuts, my Toy World thing. There's a reoccurring element I have in a lot of my releases, and that's the face of my friend Alvin.
Alvin Fu or Chu? Fu. Okay, because you sent me a bag with his face on it. And you said like it says friend of the
celebrated friend Alvin Fu.
Yes, and I have that. I bring that bag to the farmer's market.
Oh, that's awesome. But I try to hide him in as much stuff as I can get away with it. If I were to do a chase of the fries, it's going to be Alvin's face on that bag.
That's pretty cool.
It'll be haunting. He hates it.
Then he'll be Alvin. He'll be Alvin Food.
Yep, it'll be his debut as a food product amongst the toy world. Because right now, I think there's 3 other toys that are like part Alvin, but
and he hates it. I think and you still do it. That's like low key bullying. I love it.
Well, because I've always wanted. He's a video game designer and he's a programmer as well, and I've always wanted him to like take the piss out of me in one of his projects, and he never did.
He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a professional. I don't do that. And you're like, oh, that's mean.
He got me once. He had to do a fairly big Japanese game. He had to localize it, and the texture packs for like the character clothes, one of them is a really embarrassing Facebook photo of me. Is one of the t-shirt textures.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's hidden in the game.
Oh, that's pretty. So we did do the thing.
Yeah, but it's really hard to get, and it's like these things, that bag with his name on it.
Yeah, like, I mean that's it's pretty aggressive. So now
him and I are best friends. I'm actually in the office we share right now.
Oh, and he's a video game designer?
Yep, he's a programmer and a designer. He does like contract work, but he also works on his own games.
Well, that's pretty cool.
He's awesome. I knew him from Boston. We met at an anime con in Boston.
Oh, what was that called?
Anime Boston.
I don't know where they came up with the name. It's clever though. Now, so if say somebody here like wants to get into vinyl toy making, like how long of a process is that? Because I feel like, do you have to like apprentice? Like, how do you do that?
So if they want to just, if their dream is to actually come here and start doing like all of the process, it gets really hard because you need to have a source of a visa to actually be able to live here and do your own thing without having a sponsorship from another company. And because I am an independent company, we're an LLC, but we can't sponsor visas. So I couldn't like theoretically hire staff from abroad.
Well, then I don't care
abroad.
anymore. I'm ruined.
You turn off the camera.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck the show.
Interview's over.
Jeff had a cool friend.
It's the only one that goes up under the Jeff had friends.
Yeah, Jeff had a cool friend, and he was hoping to have a cool boss, but I guess not.
But it's a nightmare, like the stuff for visas, because regardless of what you do as an American, you need, and I'm almost positive this still is the case, you need a 4-year degree and need to have like a sponsorship source to get the visa. So that it's really hard to actually basically do what I did. If you want to make a design though, my second job is actually I'm an agent. So people that want to make designs in Japanese vinyl, I do their production for them. They'll have a sculpt, they'll send us a sculpt, I'll do the wax prototyping, send it out for electroplating and jointing, and then you have a mold that you can make the toys from. And it's the same toys, those old Godzilla toys from like the 60s and 70s and stuff. It's the same factories that make those. And it's the same process. It's the same molds. It's the same everything.
So it's like getting the Kirkland brand something. It's like it's the same thing. It's just being done in like with a different label.
It's a bit better than the Kirkland brand.
I think that's really rude to Costco, actually. The Kirkland brand is great, and I will not allow any Costco slander in this household.
We got Costco here, and they got my friend buys the guy at the restaurant here buys I think a Kirkland brand like tomato sauce or something.
Well, that's, come on, don't do that.
It's so weird seeing that label here.
Yeah, I would say like I got a oh, I just choked on my own spit a little bit there. I'm a professional. I got a Costco card specifically because my neighbor was telling me about how affordable protein powder was. It's the douchiest reason for me he was like, oh, I got this Orgain protein powder. It costs half as much at Costco as it does anywhere else. And so I was like, I'm going to go. And now I'm like low key obsessed with Costco.
They're nice. The one here, they have all the same food. All the food is imported from the States. So like the pizza's the same. The big churros that are like the size of your forearm, those are the same.
So did you know the story about how like they produced their own hot dogs now so they could keep the price at $1.50?
Because it was like a loss leader or something, right?
Yeah, it was like a thing that people like went for, and they just, the guy that owned it just liked the idea that they had this thing that was $1.50 forever. That's rad as.
I remember seeing that quote. I don't know how true it is, where he's like, if you increase the price of that, I will kill you.
Yeah, I will beat you, or I will kill you. I love that, like that idea that a CEO is like, if you bump the price up this by a penny, I will tear your head off. I'm like, yeah, Costco guy.
Yeah, because if anyone can afford to make that call, it's like, yeah, it's the CEO and like keep the stuff cheap. Wasn't the Little Caesars guy really cool too? The Little
Caesars guy is awesome. Yeah, he used to do a thing where they used to have like a mobile that drove around and gave pizza to people that were hungry, and his charity work. He like ended up paying Rosa Parks's rent.
Her rent or something.
Quietly.
Yeah.
Like he didn't tell anybody he did that. There was no pomp, no circumstance. He just did it.
It's just so random. It's the Little Caesars guy. Meanwhile, we have like Bezos and that other douchebag like trying to go to space.
I think the Little Caesars guy also owns 2 professional sports teams. He's like very Detroit. So in that regard, I guess he seems pretty cool. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire, but this guy's pretty all right.
Hmm.
I guess.
It's them negotiating with like morality.
Yeah, yeah. It's like maybe I'll get into hell this way or heaven this way. Sorry, not happening.
The fine balancing act of deeds versus how they got all that money.
Yeah, I always every time someone's a Christian and they're rich, I'm always like, did you not hear about the camel through the eye of the needle? You didn't hear that? It seems weird.
It's mind blowing that there can be rich religious people of any type. Like it's all a lot of it's really based in like you're not supposed to have all this material stuff and you're not supposed to have all this money.
And they're like, but I want it.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't know what to do. So what do you have? What are you working on now? Like, what are the projects that you like? Do you take on one project at a time and then when it's done, you move on? Or do you have like 4 or 5 things so that you don't get bored with one project?
Right now, I'm focusing on within, I think it was maybe a year or two ago, we started doing actual licensed toys here for Subaraya Productions, which is the company that owns Ultraman. And like my dream being a collector of these
Oh,
Ultraman toys, I've always wanted to make them. And now through a company here, actually right up the street from me, they gave me the license for it. So I've made 3 so far, and I'm currently sculpting 2 more. And just kind of prepping them for releases. We have a release in release in October, and then release in November, and then I think December or the beginning of January.
what are they
So just trying to
monsters?
get all that stuff ready.
What
Yeah,
are
they're
they?
all monsters.
Oh, do you make
So
an
the ones that are released,
would you make an Ultraman or is that like you don't do that? You just make the monsters.
I like the monsters because a couple of reasons. The monsters are what got me into the series because they're weird. They're really bizarre.
Yeah.
But the licenses for the monsters are infinitely easier to control. Like
That
for an
makes
artist,
sense. Yeah.
you have a lot more freedom to how you make the character look. When it comes to Ultraman and it comes to the heroes, they're strict.
You should get
Like it needs to look like Ultraman.
Inframan. You're a
Inframan.
Inframan. I still have that on DVD. It's like the Korean Ultraman. And
I've never even heard of it.
if you ever watch the trailer, take a minute to watch the trailer for Inframan on YouTube.
I'm gonna write this down.
And
Inframan.
there is just a line where the guy just goes, "Thunderbolt fists, rocket feet." And that was like it was either MySpace or Facebook. It was like my tagline when you'd go onto my page. It just said Thunderbolt fists, rocket feet.
Did anyone know what it was from?
No. Everybody's like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, a lot of things. Nobody knows what Inframan was. Like that's silly. Okay, so you're working on the monsters. You have some coming out. So is it like, how many projects at one time are you working on?
I tend to, not counting client stuff, I'll be working on about 5 or so projects at a time, going from sculpt to the wax part, getting those to the factory, and then focusing on painting releases, and then going back to sculpting working on another 5. And I outsource some of the sculpting. I didn't sculpt those dogus, those shakoki tachi. Those are done by an American artist named Beth Graves, who's incredible.
I love how you're
Like-
telling me, you're like, oh, the sondaku. You're saying and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't speak Japanese. I don't know how many times I have to tell you this.
the shakoki tachi guys, the little like
Oh, the little guys.
Statues, yeah.
The little guys.
Those guys are sculpted by an American sculptor by hand, and a lot of the people that see them here, I think they're 3D because they're so intricate for being so small.
And you're like, now you know why.
She's insane. She's an incredible sculptor.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Let me tell you, when I was at Sideshow and we'd go into the sculpting room, I'd look at the way some of these people were doing their shit, I'd be like, my brain is melting just looking at this.
Can't do it. Like
Dude.
It's so detailed and just so much attention to the littlest things. I can't do human forms too.
It's wild to see the skill and the talent that people have. Like, at Tweeterhead, the art director Dave Igo, like the stuff he knows how to do. He teaches like ZBrush. He does ZBrush classes.
Ooh, yeah.
And the people that have taken his class are like, do you know who Adi Granov is? He's basically the guy that designed the Iron Man that we saw in the Iron Man movies. Like
Really?
he's the artist that did the Iron Man Extremis run with Warren Ellis and all that stuff. He's like this big, and like Olivia de Berardinis, like the painter, the super famous painter Olivia, who was like the famous like Vargas style pinup painter, who's like, I think she's in her like early 70s maybe. And he's teaching them how to do ZBrush. These like legendary
they're learning
artists.
ZBrush?
Yeah. Apparently it's good for like modeling and stuff if you're doing, so you don't have to, I don't know. Maybe they just like to learn.
That's awesome. ZBrush is, I find it incredibly difficult because I'm more of a hands-on type of person.
Yeah.
But just the people that can do ZBrush amazingly, I get so jealous going on Twitter and seeing people posting like just turnarounds, like, I was bored, so I modeled this thing from a comic I liked, and they would be reading, like when Psycho Gorman came out here, a lot of people were making like 3D versions of the suits, and they were making them in like a couple of hours, and it's like, how did you do this?
It's wild, to see that. And I don't think at Sideshow there's ever really any physical modeling anymore.
It's all 3D.
Like I think they all do it. I think they all do it digitally now. I mean, they are people that were sculptors, that were doing it physically using clay and whatever, and then they just eventually shifted. It's kind of cool though.
I wish I had that skill set.
I mean, you can learn. Take one of Dave Igo's classes. Tell him I sent you. So I know we got to get going. We've just hit the 90-minute mark, and that's generally where I like to sort of stop that. So we can go to your store at sciencepatrol.storeenvy.com, and Storeenvy just has the one E. So it's STORENVY.com. We can find you on Instagram at science_patrols. Correct?
Yeah, Science Patrol was taken.
Yeah. Now that's an Ultraman reference too, right?
Yeah, it's the like slang term for the science search party group, which are like the ones that usually Ultraman is a member of them. They're like the Earth Defense Force for those series.
That's pretty cool. What else can where should we go? What should we do?
Honestly, Instagram is, I think, the most maintained social media I have. I'll post about releases of upcoming shows, and then also for when there's going to be shop drops specifically. I try and use Instagram the most. I cross-post almost everything on Twitter, but Twitter is mainly, I use it more for Japan than I do Instagram. But Instagram's definitely the best one.
Hell yeah. And so that's what we should do. We should follow you on Instagram at science_patrols. And then definitely link is in bio for your store, but y'all should check out his stuff because it's so cool. And maybe you can get a Cranston sometime.
I promise there will be more stuff soon.
I'm excited about that because I want one. On my end, of course, you can follow me at Hey There Jeffro on social media. You can check out if you are listening for free. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. If you want to get these episodes early without all those bleeps that you heard in this episode, check out patreon.com/JeffMay. You can also check out Tom and Jeff Watch Batman on the Gamefully Unemployed Patreon. And of course, You Don't Even Like Sports, a sports podcast for people who don't like sports, and the Unpopular Opinion podcast, both available on the Unpops Network, as well as an episode of Conspiracy the Show that I just did with him about lizard people.
Oh,
yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Cory Privitera, thank you so much for joining me from across the damn globe.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, it was so much fun. I love your account. I love seeing all the cool that you post. You're a fun follow, as we like to say, and just a very cool friend.
Thank you very much. You are a cool friend as well.
Shut up. Don't you get out of here. Come back to the States.
I'll be back
soon.
in the States eventually.
Yeah, get back here. Come to DesignerCon or something. All right, everybody. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. See you later. Bye. Hey, everyone. Our artwork is created by Justin T. Brown, who can be found at Artness by Justin Brown on Instagram, as well as artnessbyjustinbrown.com. That dope music you heard is by Troy Nababon, available at Troy Nababon on Instagram as well as at troynababon.com. Nababon is spelled Nababon.